First session of the RTA Transit Innovation Series. Beginning our series here today on express lanes and transit. At your seat, you have a list of all the upcoming events, and we'll also go over those at the end. Appreciate you taking the time to be here today. I'm Joe Milazzo, I'm Executive Director of the Regional Transportation Alliance Business Leadership Group here in the Triangle. We've been fully supportive of enhancing transit in all of our counties across the community. We want to see that move forward, and we're hoping this series will play an important role along with the other conversations that are going on for transit in this market. We'd be remiss if we did not first welcome our series partner sponsors. Without their support and help, we would simply not be having a Transit Innovation Series right now. We want to thank Duke Energy, we want to thank Lenovo, Kinley Horn and Associates, Triangle Transit, and URS. If you will help join me in thanking them. We'd also be remiss if we didn't welcome very briefly the RTA leadership team. Four founding member chambers, Cary, Chapel Hill, Scarborough, Durham, and Raleigh. Also our platinum member, Duke Energy, our gold member, Cisco Systems, the EDGE program, Fairway Outdoor Advertising, Forge, Raleigh Chamber, GlaxoSmithKline, Quintiles, the Research Triangle Park. Also our silver members, you see them, Blue Cross Blue Shield, North Carolina, Cherokee Investment Partners, Credit Suisse, Fidelity Investments, First Citizens Bank, IBM Corporation, Kane Realty, Kinley Horn and Associates, Lenovo Corporation, NetApp, Red Hat, and our senior regional partners, Capillary MPO, Capillary Transit, Durham Chapel Harbor MPO, Raleigh Durham Airport Authority, and Triangle Transit. It's a lot of partners doing a lot of work together for the business community and our partners. Please, let's welcome and thank them. We also have 23 member chambers in Central and Eastern North Carolina. You can read their names here. This is one more sign of cooperation from the regional business community on transit. And let me briefly do some introductions. Thank you. Three introductions to do. The first one I want to introduce you is the fact that all of us are going to be part of the conversation. We want to encourage that. At the bottom of this screen, you can see the Twitter handle at RTA Triangle, and you see the tag there, RTA Transit Series. We'll be flying from that and tweeting from that, and we invite you to join us in that. In terms of our introductions today, we have two gentlemen who have traveled here from out of state to be with us. First, we have Mr. Larry Cloyed. Larry, he's the Senior Project Manager for the Express Lanes for Virginia DOT. He has served as the project manager for the creation of the express lanes on the Capitol Beltway, and now he oversees the operations and maintenance of that. Previously to that, he worked as a project manager for the Springfield Interchange. If you've ever traveled from Raleigh to New York, for example, or Philadelphia, you went through that whether you wanted to or not. He was responsible for making that a lot better interchange than it was just a few years ago. His wife resided in Northern Virginia, and he's worked with the project management group there. Also, Mr. Joe Wagner. He's the CEO of the Hillsborough County Expressway Authority in the Tampa Bay area. He came to the Hillsborough County Expressway Authority in August 2007, immediately made some improvements to the operations, maintenance, and financial position. He's now the box thinker. You're going to hear about one of his concepts in a few moments. He's a former planner. He worked in Maryland for many years, and also not just on the Highway Department and the Transportation Authority, but also as an airport planner as well for a few years. So let's please give a warm welcome to both of them. We're going to begin the first presentation of the two will be from Mr. Larry Cloyed.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me here, Joe, and all of you who come down here to the lovely city of Raleigh, North Carolina, and do a little presentation on a few things we're doing up in Northern Virginia, which is not very far away as the crow flies. So let me get to it pretty quickly because we have some limited time, so I'm going to have to stick to the slides pretty closely because there's a lot here to talk about, but hopefully we'll get done in time and we won't hold you up either. Virginia has been a leader in P3 projects, as many of you know now, for a number of years. Our first enabling legislation was in 1995 under the Public-Private Transportation Act. We renewed Virginia's commitment to that in a big way in 2010 by establishing a separate multimodal P3 office and by developing standard processes for P3 project screening and prioritization. We're one of the few states that's really looking at that long term in terms of getting projects into the pipeline. We also work diligently and have today a receptive political environment toward P3 projects, which is essential, I think, to the success of those projects in any state or in any form. They've provided a delivery of, we have provided delivery of a number of tangible benefits with the use of PPP projects, and we are currently today involved in roughly about $4 billion US dollars in P3 projects. What are the goals of our PPP program? One, to leverage private investment to enable major projects and to maximize tax dollars. To accelerate delivery of major transportation improvements, to shift key risks to the private sector away from our taxpayers, deliver on time, on budget. That speaks to credibility for the Commonwealth as a whole, and we want to do that, obviously, at higher rates than traditional delivery would be. To access private sector skills and innovation, big part of the P3 program. To preserve our state debt capacity, that was important a year or two ago. If you remember, Virginia went back to those bonds to borrow, and we wanted that capacity, and these P3 projects are providing us with the opportunity to preserve that capacity. To shift long-term operation and maintenance responsibilities away from the state through the PPPs, we can do quite a bit of that. And also to create jobs, obviously, and to boost our statewide economy. Now, what are the keys to some of those, to the PPP success story as we see it, at least in Virginia? First and foremost is good law. You have to write P3 law, you have to enable legislation, and you have to get it out there, and you have to stay at it, because it will change. You also have to be willing to take a few risks. I'm sure many of you know we were in the Supreme Court here not very long ago with an argument over taxes versus fees. And it probably wouldn't have been an argument we would have fought if it had not been enabled in PPP legislation. Implementation guidelines are important. You have to have guidelines for the program. You have to be consistent in terms of how you push the program forward. We talked about it a little bit. Political and public support are so important. We are fortunate and we have enjoyed both political and public support for the program as a whole. A transparent development process, you can't overlook that. You have to be transparent no matter what the vehicle for delivery of these projects, programs, and expenditure of the funds is. You have to have public sector capacity for most PPP projects. They won't be successful if you don't, and as we talked about a minute ago, you have to really have a pipeline of projects. You need projects, and you need to be feeding that pipeline into the system and thinking about how to form public-private partnerships for the benefit of all parties. 495 Express Lanes, which I'm going to talk to you about specifically today, is a bit of a case study in a PPP project that really was the best fit we ever could have found for a PPP project, at least in my opinion. Many of you have been up to Northern Virginia. You know we have a beltway that circles the city, and you know that in Northern Virginia our economic engines are Tyson's Corner and the Dulles Corridor, and to a lesser extent, but very important, Alexandria and the lobbies in Alexandria. So it's important that that corridor have free movement, and that we put together packages that create seamless transportation networks. The Beltway worked for us because the Beltway tied all of our HOV networks in Northern Virginia together. And it tied us to the major employment corridors with those HOV networks. So I'll skip most of what was on this slide because I just told it to you in short terms. What was the cost of the project? It was nearly a $2 billion transportation improvement. We accelerated it a number of years by being able to partner in this fashion. $1.5 billion was in private equity and debt. Big chunk of that was TIFIA loans, federal TIFIA loans, private activity bonds, and a $409 million contribution from the Commonwealth, the bulk of which went into replacement of the adjacent aging infrastructure next to the new express lanes. That's what we put most of our money into. We were able to transfer a number of key risks to our private partners and away from our taxpayers. We put together an 80-year partnership, of which 75 years is an operating agreement. And I'm now working with that. I built it. Now I get to work on the other side of the fence, which is a lot of fun for me. But it's a challenge. The partnership agreement included key provisions to protect our public interest, obviously, revenue sharing, no non-compete clauses were built in, transparency in the agreements, and a number of long-term performance requirements. Our partnership structure was, as you see it here, VDOT, Floor Transurban, Floor and Lane Construct were the design-build contractor, and we had some interesting subcontract arrangements whereby Transurban actually subcontracted itself back to the design builder, primarily because they had expertise in the gantries and the gate systems and we wanted to keep this project moving, so that's how that all came together. This is just a quick slide on how the funding was broken out. You can see the PABs were close to $600 million. The TIFIAs were about $600 million. Private equity, about $350 million. And Virginia's grant, about $400+ million. Key benefits. We started in 2008. We put $2 billion into this infrastructure improvement in roughly about 5 years. Now you think about the burn rate, how many $1 million a month you're spending, and how much work is getting done. That's a huge project to do in such a short time frame. But we were able to do that, and by doing so, we were able to add roughly about 50% capacity to manage congestion in the Northbound corridor lanes alone. That's a substantial chunk of capacity for those of you who are in this business. You know that. We replaced about $260 million in aging infrastructure. It was the first major improvement to our capital beltway in over a generation. It was the first time opportunity for ride sharing, carpooling, and use of mass transit in that corridor. And as I said previously, it's connecting all of our major commuter routes, creating seamless HOV and transit network connections. There were 3 new access points also created to hit the major retail and employment centers, most of which were in Tyson's Corner. In terms of transit options, which was a benefit, you know, HOV3 is probably our most popular commuter option in Northern Virginia, but a great benefit of this project was we were able to put our transit networks together and create these seamless transit networks and multimodal networks. So commuter bus service, we're seeing 20% improvements. You see that in another slide in a little bit. Bus rapid transit, I don't know why I have van pools twice in the slide. There's only one kind of van pool that I'm aware of. Somehow we messed up there, so just forget about the 5th one. And ride sharing, which is also popular with us. So there also are scalable transit options, which is nice to have. They're an alternative to more expensive light and commuter rail systems. They can build transit ridership patterns for us. We have existing transit ridership patterns. This works well in terms of connecting those transit ridership patterns and building, building volume and building fare box recoveries and doing the things you need to do to improve that situation a little bit. Forget a little bit about future right-of-way for light. The only place we really tucked right-of-way for light rail into this project was on an overpass, Jones Branch in the Tysons area, where they might one day look at a future circulator at Tysons. So we did give some light rail right-of-way there. We do not have enough right-of-way in the corridor to add light rail at a later stage. It might have been nice to have had that option. But it is, again, a foundation for multimodal systems. And they're in use, and that's a good thing. Are we supporting transit development? Obviously we are. By 2050, we expect Tysons to be a walkable, sustainable urban center. It will be a home for up to 100,000 residents and 200,000 jobs, helped along not only by express lanes, but by the new Dulles rail system as well. Envisioned to become a 24-hour urban center where we have people live, work, and play. As you know today, it's a retail, shopping, and a big commercial office group, and it's suburban in character. But that is all changing and changing very rapidly. Again, we have a mobile system. We have 4 new stations on the Silver Line that are going to run through Tysons. And we have the express lanes, 3 new access points from the express lanes, which give direct access to shopping, to employers, obviously increased commuter bus service, and a number of new van pools. Van pools are very popular for us, and we see them getting more popular every day, particularly among major employers. A number of improvements to the Beltway, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in terms of potentially what that means in terms of revenue for the operators, because that takes a little time for all that to catch up. Just a quick little slide that's embedded here on how the system works, if I can make it work here. Let's see. Do I put the mouse on it? Okay. Thank you, Natalie. Technical challenge here. Just a quick little...
if you're traveling on 495 towards Tysons, you can get onto the northbound express lanes about 1.5 miles after the Springfield interchange. As you make your way towards the express lanes, you will see white signs that remind you that only 2-axle vehicles are allowed on the express lanes. You need an E-ZPass or E-ZPass Flex to use the express lanes. Before the entry point, you will see pricing signs that show you current toll prices. The signs will only show the price to 3 destinations. the last price listed will always show the highest toll you could pay. It is the toll to the last exit from your entry point. You will see the second pricing sign before you enter. You will lock in the price you see on the second sign when you get on the express lane. The express lanes are the far two left lanes. Keep left to enter the express lanes. The express lanes is a limited access facility. Once you get on the express lanes, you can only get off at designated exits. Do not cross the white posts that separate the express lanes from the regular lanes. Lee Highway is your first option to exit when heading north on the express lanes. Safe travels.
All right, so just a quick little intro on how they work. And by the way, they have a number of these on their website, 495expresslanes.com, and you can get the different sequences. Did I get it right? Thank you. Keeping traffic moving, obviously, that's exactly what we want to do. How do we do that with express lanes? Dynamic toll rates, adjust to keep the lanes free flowing. Mandatory easy passes, it's all electronic, no toll booths. Two different types of passes can be used, the standard Easy Pass, and we have what's called an Easy Pass Flex. The Easy Pass Flex has a switchable tag. You switch it, you're on the honor system essentially. You switch the tag, you're in HOV3 mode, you ride free. If you don't have a switchable tag, you pay. Even if you have 5 people in your car, you will pay. So, if you're using it regularly, you get the switchable tag. Express Assist is there also to aid disabled drivers. They have our operators have their own system, and it's a 24/7 Express Assist program. We're not able to do that at UDOT at this point in time, but they're able to do that on their system. You can't, as they said, get to every available exit from everywhere on the Beltway inside the express lanes. There are entry and exit points, and they're well defined. Most of the major routes you can reach. You can either get to them or get to them and get from them. And as I've said before, we've added 3 new access points in Tyson's Corner itself. Part of the build program, part of the design build program for us was to put together a very robust traffic management plan. We all call them TMPs today. We always call them CMPs. They were congestion management plans, now we're calling them traffic management plans. I learned from the Springfield interchange that this was a critical component of design, build, and delivery of any project today, is to put together a good transit management plan. The second thing I learned from construction of the Springfield Interchange project, as well as my counterpart Nick Nicholson with the Woodrow Wilson Bridge project, was that what you do in traffic management plans, often in the design build phase of the work, goes on to live its own life once you're done and you're finished and you're delivered. So investments you make in bus systems, investments you make in van pools, investments you make in telework programs, investments you make in community, small community bus circulators even, are investments that often will grow. And the next, they'll stay beyond. So when we put together the TMP for 495, we looked at that strategically as not just a program that would live with construction and that would help us during construction, but to the extent possible, it would provide a foundation for the multimodal network that we were trying to create. So we came up with a number of things here. We had an employer solutions team on the Beltway Hot Lanes project. We had over 1,000 meetings, events, and transportation affairs to promote these incentives that we developed. Express bus service we put together from Loudon and Woodbridge to Tyson's Corner, and we subsidized a portion of that. That express bus service is now running on the Beltway Hot Lanes as a dedicated bus service. So it was able to establish itself, and once we opened the system up, boom, right in they went. We offered $50,000 telework incentives to employers who would develop telework programs to keep employees off the road during our construction program. And we had 35, I believe, employer telework programs implemented. So it took a little while to get that one started, but once it got going, it was quite successful. Number of van pool incentives, we created 24 new van pools. I was a huge fan of van pools because I knew how well they worked on 95. Unfortunately, I'm not the traffic drum modeler. The Cambridge guys are a lot better at that than I am. I had great hopes for van pool on the Beltway. But of course, because the Beltway didn't have HOV lanes, it took a little while for van pool to really get started because they weren't making any headway during construction. But once they did get started, they did wonderfully. We have 24 new van pools created. Big companies really love them. Cap One was one who got involved in the van pool system because they could bring employees up, a number of dedicated employees. So it's worked out real well. We estimated about 108,000 passenger rides per month were being reduced from that road system in van pools. We had a new ride loyalty program, and I'm not real familiar with all of that, but it provided subsidies for new rides. Now, where are we today? Well, we've been open about a year. We're, of course, and I'll say this lightly, we're still in the ramp-up phase, which is kind of a way of saying our revenue probably isn't where we hoped it would be at this point in time, but certainly our operating revenue isn't probably where they would hope it would be. But we do see that curve growing. We see it scaling up, and as it scales up, we see the dollars scale up with it. So that's a positive. Toll revenue grew 14.3% from a daily average of $45,000 in June to $51,000 in September. Our average daily trips grew about 5.6% in the September quarter. We had 37,574 was the number of average workday trips during the September quarter. Average dynamic toll charge was $1.86 for the September quarter. Maximum dynamic toll was $8.90 to travel the full length. And 60% of regular VA Beltway travelers have an pass or easy pass flags. That's the regular travelers on the Beltway, general purpose. We talked a little bit about travel on the express lanes. Here are some numbers. High occupancy and exempt vehicles today make up roughly 9% of the customer base inside those express lanes. So that's a pretty good sized jump of, when you look at percentages for HOV. Typically, we average about 4 to 5%, but also we have to look at the ratios, so those numbers can be a little misleading. New bus service, revised bus service schedule since opening. Fairfax County Express Connector Service now has a dedicated bus service that's running on Express from Burke, Lorton, and Springfield to Tyson's Corner, and OmniRide bus service, which brings traffic up from Woodbridge, or commuters up from Woodbridge and Manassas, is also running dedicated buses to Tyson's. And we see, again, continuing growth in the van pools and to the employment corridors. I talked about it, I'll say it again, it's a seamless network coordination for Northern Virginia, and we like that. This was a great fit. You won't always have such great fits, but this was a great fit. Coordinated incident response between our partners, and that's an ongoing, now that I'm on the operations side of the house, we're doing a lot of work in that regard in terms of coordination of incident response and a lot of other things. They also have a dedicated private incident response, and they have resources for that on the express lanes. Transurban does, our private partner. They aided more than 100 travelers in disabled vehicles during the third quarter of 2013. Just a few little numbers, more than 400 travelers all total. Maintaining safety loop requirements are very important. That means we have to maintain a minimum speed. 45 miles per hour is the federal minimum mile per hour speed. We must maintain 90% of the time. That's a performance metric. We have done that. Our dynamic pricing system seems to be working well. We have a few glitches with that system. It's worked quite well. And Beltway drivers really seem to like it. Our September survey showed that about 60% of our Beltway drivers see the benefit of the express lanes to the region. That's a big number. 8 in 10 customers say they plan to use the express lanes again. They were satisfied with the experience they have on the express lanes. Top reasons they've used the express lanes are 68% wanted to reach a destination on time. So 2/3 of those people had a specific objective in mind when they got on those hot lanes. 46% used due to congestion on the regular Beltway lanes, so they said, oh, I'll slip over. 30% were interested in a reliable trip, 30% wanted a less stressful trip. I would be on the bottom of that. I'd be in the, I want a less stressful trip. I'm going to switch now to the 95 express lanes. This is a sudden switch, but we are, as many of you know, are also building express lanes on 95, and those express lanes will run the length of the current HOV lanes, which was roughly from Dumfries, Virginia, up to Arlington and across the river. And we are going to extend those by another, I think it's what, 29 miles all total, down to Garrisonville. Well, it's not 29. It's 9 to 11 miles to Garrisonville. It's not my project, unfortunately. I said, oh, I have all the numbers in my head. But that will be $1 billion improvement. It's well underway. We expect by December of next year to have that segment open. We are expanding the existing HOV from 2 reversible to 3 reversible lanes. The last section that we're extending from Dumfries to Garrisonville will be 2 lanes reversible, current footprint. We'll again offer free access to HOV plus transit, plus 3 plus transit. Our state contribution in this case was quite small. We put $71 million on the table for this project. The other $925 million came from private partners. So we have a small investment in this project. They have a major investment in this project. Comprehensive agreement was executed in 2012. So we're going to spend this $1 billion and build a system in roughly about 2 years, 2.5 years. And again, that's well into construction. We're about 60% complete. A little better. This is just a scope of those improvements that we've made in PPP projects and in express lanes. You see the Beltway is in orange there, and you see the I-95 express lanes are in green. Those of you who travel 95 north, particularly during the rush hours in the morning, you know the capacity is there. And we're going to have to take a good look at just how much of that capacity shifts over to express and what people are willing to pay to get out from under that mess. Frankly, if I had to make that commute every day, I would either move or I'd pay. I would be one or the other. Commuter solution strategies, we talked about that a little bit in terms of 495 and what we did there. We're employing many of those same solution strategies, computer solution strategies on 95 Express. We have the Woodbridge-Tysons movement. We have free Saturday bus service along the I-95 corridor. 1, because we're working Saturdays. 2, because it's promotable. If you look at weekend traffic today on the Beltway, you can get people in a bus to ride on Saturday. The VRE step-up fares, we provide some subsidies for VRE users. The problem we have there is that VRE is essentially a capacity, so you can only do so much. They have put some additional trains on those, so that's helped. They can also use Amtrak, and we have a special setup there, a step-up ticket for Amtrak. If you can't get a VRE, you can get on Amtrak, and we'll pay a portion of that cost for the Amtrak. Okay, so that pretty much covers the project, the express lanes, and all that you need to know for now. These 2 websites, if you can get a hold of this, I'm sure Joe will have it. The websites give you an awful lot of information about the 2 projects, programs, the benefits, and our first year in operation. Thank you.
To keep the conversation going, we're going to have questions in a little bit, but we're going to go straight right now to our second presentation from Mr. Wagner. Joe? Sorry, Joe. You're fine. Okay. Yeah, Matt, why don't you go ahead and do
Okay, as was stated, transportation, how to fund it is an ongoing challenge. You know, what kinds of transportation solutions you fund is a different challenge. But you truly do need it to maintain and grow your economy, all right? About 3 years ago, Hillsborough County, where I come from, attempted a transportation referendum tax, and it failed. And it involved highways, transit, all right? So bottom line is we're still looking for our funding solutions as well. Coincidentally, about 4 years ago, I came up with a different idea of how you assemble traditional transportation solutions and financing concepts to provide a different kind of transit solution. And that concept is something we call creatively bus tolling. It's exactly what it sounds like, and we're going to explain it to you a little bit right here. And I'll get into the details as I do the rest of my presentation. It's the same questions, the same problems. How do we give people choices? How do we give them the service that they need? And where does the money come from to do that?
The need to move people and pay for it has been a source of frustration in the United States for the past 50 years. With increased competition for dollars, transportation and transit need to consider new solutions and new partnerships to accomplish their missions. The Tampa-Hillsborough Expressway Authority has partnered with the Hillsborough Area Regional Transit Authority and have come up with a new concept that helps to accomplish each agency's mission as well as address urban mobility. This innovative mobility concept puts more people on the bus, paying for the transit agency's operation and maintenance costs with toll dollars.
So here's an opportunity, because they've got entities that can manage lanes and traffic flow and handle all of that. And they've got entities which are really good at transporting people back and forth. So why not put them together from the beginning?
This new public partnership between transit and tolls uses the proven business practices of the toll industry, combined with the latest bus rapid transit technologies to provide sustainable first-class transportation options for urban corridors. We call this concept bus toll lanes.
You'd have to make sure that the system is operated so that the bus rider or the transit customer is the primary focus. You want to make sure they get the lowest cost, you want to make sure they get the fastest trip. And the kind of application we're talking about, both of those things do happen.
Bus toll lanes are high-speed lanes owned by the transit agency and give first priority to buses. The remaining capacity is sold to individual drivers willing to pay a toll.
Now, these lanes would be controlled by access, so it's not like even your interstate access where you have numerous points, but there would be the ability for a user willing to pay for the premium service to get in those lanes and have a guaranteed travel time.
With toll rates designed to maintain high speeds and steady traffic flow, this concept gives drivers three options: premium bus service, high-speed toll lanes, or existing general-purpose lanes. While this might not sound different than a typical managed lane, the real innovation of bus toll lanes is how construction and maintenance are funded. Transit would invest the capital to help build the lanes. The toll revenue from the cars sharing the lanes would go back to the transit agency to cover operating and maintenance costs, thus giving transit a new definition of fare box.
And a public-public partnership is getting different agencies together that have different skill sets, but saying, what can we do to make this more successful?
The premise of the public-public partnership is based upon the ability of the transit agency to pursue funding and garner the capital to build a project, while a toll agency's expertise lies in collecting tolls and the operations components. The joint study showed that this concept will work in an urban area with peak hour congestion and limited financial capability. The study featured adding bus toll lanes and special dedicated express bus service on congested, limited access arterial highways and evaluated how the concept would operate over a 30-year period. The results of the study found that bus toll lanes covered the transit operating shortfall, moved significantly more people, and had the potential to produce additional revenue that would belong to the transit agency that invested in building the bus toll lane.
Your new fare box, in essence,